God. This is a big boy. This is the MSI Creator Z17. It's a 17-inch creative/gaming laptop, and it's crazy. It's insane. And the question that I have today is, why doesn't Apple make anything remotely like this? Well, today we're going to explore the Z17, compare it to Apple's offerings, and we're going to find out why. So make sure to leave a like down below, get subscribed, and let's get into it. No matter which of these two laptops suits your fancy, there is no denying that today's video sponsor, iFixit, is the best way to get parts, tools, and resources for upgrading or repairing them. Although I suppose the upgrade part only really applies to the MSI. But regardless, now is the perfect time to stock up on all of your repair gear, and of course, the cheapest way to upgrade your device is to keep using the one you already had. So this month, save 20% off iPhone and Pixel parts to keep your devices running and skip the upgrade. So check out the link in the description below, and now let's get back to the video. Okay. Oh my God, this thing is massive. Look at it. It's like the size of my torso. That's all there is in the box. We have our charger brick over here, and yeah, so if you want to power a 17-inch gaming/creative laptop, you're gonna need a big boy. It's 240 watts, and it even uses a standard power cord like you would find on a PC. So this is a pretty legitimate piece of kit. But then again, it needs to be, because what you're powering is 240 watts worth of absolute behemoth. This thing has a 17-inch 1600p 165Hz display, a Core i9-12900H, GeForce RTX 3080 Ti with 16GB of VRAM, 2TB SSD, and 64GB of RAM. That is significant, I think it's safe to say. This is basically the most powerful hardware that you can get in a Windows laptop. However, I also happen to have the most powerful hardware you can get in an Apple laptop. So how exactly do they compare? Well, to find out, I pitted these two against each other, starting with Cinebench R23. Now, as you might imagine, given that the 12900H has more cores and consumes more power, we do see an increase in score to 14895 compared to 12306. So while that is a noticeable difference, about 20% better performance, I think it is also worth noting that if you want this computer to give you that kind of performance, you're gonna have to switch it to performance mode. Yeah, that's not something that you would ever have to do on the Mac, but on the Z17 here, we have this little button, and I can put it in performance mode, and you'll hear very quickly that that is what it entails. So if you want that extra 20% performance, it's gonna have to sound like this. If you don't want the fans to be screaming your head off, well, then you gotta put it in quiet mode like this, and then your score is only gonna be around 10,000, which is more in line with the base model 14-inch with the 8-core CPU. I, for one, would absolutely take 20% less CPU performance if it means I don't have to wear noise-canceling headphones just to use my laptop. But there are some practical real-world applications where you're not going to hear that much noise and you will notice a difference. So for example, in the Blender classroom test, when running on the CPU, we found that it took about 1.5 minutes less time on the 12900H compared to the M1 Max. That's a pretty noticeable difference, but it is nowhere near the type of difference that you'll see when using the GPU. So the M1 Max, when using the Metal API, takes 1 minute and 46 seconds, but the Z17 with the 3080 Ti using optics takes just 25 seconds. It just goes to show, if you're doing Blender, NVIDIA is absolutely, hands down, the way to go. I'm hoping that Apple Silicon will get optimized and will really take advantage of all that power, but until then, this is just so much faster. But another area where you might correctly assume the Z17 would come out on top, of course, is going to be gaming. Because while both of these laptops are pitched as being for creative professionals, this runs Windows, which means you can just run any game you want on it. And it's got a 3080 Ti, which is, of course, a ludicrously powerful laptop GPU, so it comes as no surprise that when I ran the 1200p benchmark for Rise of the Tomb Raider, we saw 160 FPS average on the Z17 compared to 124 on the MacBook. And it should then come as no surprise that when switching to native 1600p, we got 118 on the Z17 and 105 on the MacBook. Now, this is probably the most favorable gaming comparison that you can find. If you run another game, like for example City Skylines, which is one of my favorites, then optimization is really going to hold you back. Because of course, these things aren't that different in terms of CPU power, but the Mac port of this game just doesn't run very well, and everything looks bad, runs pretty stuttery. It's just not a very good experience compared to running on the Z17, where things are buttery smooth just like on my desktop. But of course, performance isn't everything. There's the whole package that the computer comes in, and well, there are some definite advantages to the Z17. For example, the ability to upgrade your storage and your RAM. That is something that just doesn't exist in Apple land. However, if you flip that around, this type of display is unparalleled. Literally, you cannot find a display that is overall better than what Apple is shipping right now. It's just impossible. Same thing goes for the speakers. I mean, it's not even close. But the biggest difference between these two, of course, is the size. And honestly, it doesn't look like that big of a difference, but going from the 16 to the 17-inch display and form factor does actually do a lot. Now, I'm a big fan of big screens. I always get the biggest iPhone. I always get the biggest MacBook. I always get the biggest iMac. So you would think that I would love extra screen real estate. And you'd be correct. I do. It's really, really nice to use. However, a laptop is primarily designed to be portable. And when you make it this big, it's not that portable anymore. The 16-inch, in all honesty, is the upper limit of what I would actually consider traveling with. And so this guy, it's just too big. It's ludicrous. Could you imagine putting this on an airplane tray table? You'd have to get 2 seats. And that brings us back to the original question. Why doesn't Apple make something like this? Why don't they say, hey, screw it, practicality be damned, we're gonna make a massive laptop, we're gonna cram an M1 Ultra in it, and it's gonna be this absolute monster. Well, I think some of the drawbacks of this thing speak for themselves. The fact that in order to get this level of performance, you have to have your fans such that it sounds like this. No thank you. Don't need that in my life. And the fact that it becomes so big that you might have to upgrade your backpack, well, I don't know about that either. And then there's the price. This thing is $4,500. That's about $400 more expensive than an equivalently spec'd 16-inch MacBook Pro. So it doesn't even fall into that classic PC mantra of more power, less money. So which of these do you choose? Do you go for the ludicrously powerful, ludicrously loud, ludicrously large laptop, or do you go for something a little bit more restrained, that doesn't have as good optimization, that can't run as many apps? Well, honestly, I wouldn't go for either of these. I would buy a base model 14-inch MacBook Pro, and I would buy a separate Windows laptop for gaming. So I know that that is not what most people would do. But me personally, if I'm spending $4,500, I would get either a base model 16-inch or 14-inch with the M1 Pro, and then I would spend the other half of that budget on a gaming laptop. Any one of these fine laptops would fit that bill perfectly, and you know what? You're probably not even going to notice the difference in performance. Going from a 1200H to a 12900, going from a 3080 to a 3080 Ti, it's not a huge jump. So that's probably why Apple doesn't make anything like this. They have realized that the MacBook Pro has basically gone as high as it'll go. people aren't really willing to spend more than $4,000 on a laptop. And even then, you're really pushing your luck. So I think it makes sense why Apple killed off the 17-inch MacBook Pro 10 years ago, and why they've been focusing more on the lower end. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Which of these two laptops would you pick? I know what I'll pick for sure, and that is to subscribe to this channel and leave a like down below. So you should do that too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.